All right, welcome everyone to David in History for the Ages. I bet a lot of you have seen this photo before and you've wondered, is this real? What's going on here? You see this guy not doing the Nazi salute around a sea of people who are. And this is a real picture of a real man in a remarkable story. So I did a little research and I thought I would kind of share the story of who this man is. His name is August Landmesser. And this was taken in 1936. Now, to again give you some historical perspective here, Hitler comes into power in 1932, 33. He's fully entrenched in power. By 1939, that's when World War II begins. So this is during those what I call appeasement years, when Hitler's in power before World War II starts. And so this is also not some photo of this, sometimes you take a picture of someone and you just happen to catch him, maybe he was forgetful or something and he didn't do what he's supposed to do. No, this was intentional. This man despised the Nazi regime, even though, of course, he was living there. This photo was taken in Hamburg at a shipyard factory. And what had happened is the year before, the reason he despised us so much is the year before, in 1935, he was engaged to get married to a woman named Irma Eckler. Now, the deal with Irma is may have been part Jewish. This is a very important topic within the Jewish faith. There is some discussion like, well, who is Jewish? You're Jewish if only your mom's Jewish. Can you be half Jewish, quarter Jewish? In the beginnings of Judaism, it went through the father's line. Today, more people consider it through the mother's line. It depends within Judaism. Some Jewish people, like in the Reformed Jewish movement, say it could go to the father line. The Orthodox Jews say the mother's line. But in terms of Nazi Germany, they didn't care, right? If you were half Jewish, quarter Jewish, you were Jewish. And this is something I tell people all the time that of folks who think about this topic is that at the end of the day, the people who don't like the Jewish people, they're not gonna care, right? And I think that's important to keep in mind. And so what had happened was in 1935, the same year he was engaged, you also had the Nuremberg laws. The Nuremberg laws in Germany were a series of laws that prohibited rights of the Jewish people. And I have a video on this as well in my World War II playlist where I already talk about this. But that you weren't allowed to marry non-Jews, that you weren't allowed to have German citizenship, you weren't allowed to vote, all these very restrictive laws if you were Jewish. So, basically what had happened is even though they weren't allowed to get married, so he was engaged to her, he couldn't get married to her because of this law, they did have a child together. And then in 1937, they tried to flee, actually. They tried to flee out of Germany. He was caught and he was arrested for, quote unquote, dishonoring the race. If there's a scene in Schindler's List, if you've ever seen that movie where Oscar Schindler kisses a Jewish woman, and as he kisses this Jewish woman, what ends up happening is he gets arrested for this. He's able to bribe his way out simply for kissing a Jewish woman. And so this was something that he was put on trial on. Now, because there was not 100% clear evidence if she was Jewish or not, he get off with a warning. That only lasted for a couple years because then he would be arrested again. Now, by the time he gets arrested a second time, things are starting to heat up. We're getting to the start of World War II almost. And he was sentenced to a hard labor camp. So this guy, they decided to go after him, and all these trials were just a sham to eventually get him. And they got him, and they put him in a hard labor camp. The story actually becomes very sad at this point because then his wife is going to be taken. She'll be put in a camp during the war. She's going to be murdered in 1942. So when he was sent, by then they had already had a second child as well, to the camp. That was the last time he ever saw her. He would go to this hard labor camp. She would go to a concentration camp. She'd end up being murdered. After his couple of years in this hard labor camp, then he was taken into forced military service. What they did in Germany in 1940s is, as the war was raging, they took some people who were in these forced labor camps and made them military people, whether you like it or not. And so he was into forced military service. He was killed in action in 1944. And so, this is an amazing photo and it's a tragic story, but incredibly powerful one as well. There's There's old saying during the war that so many people did things because they were quote unquote just following orders, and he was the exact opposite of that. I mean, he fought tooth and nail to the very end, not just to follow the orders and not just to do what he was told. And there's another old saying that I always like, that it's better to die standing up than live on your knees. And here you see this man who was willing to die standing up, and that's exactly what happened to him. This is the epitome of courage and honor and strength in an individual. I tell people, in history, history's not there for us to love or hate, and we're supposed to look at all these events and talk about the good and the bad. But I do think there's elements of history as well where you can find individuals you can admire and learn from. And I think he's a great example of that. So hopefully this little video gave you a little background on who this man is and the story. Feel free to please share it, leave your comments in there as well on it. And that's it. I hope you found that interesting. All right, everyone, have a great day.